right, fourth grade, we are going to be working on a hand Zentangle. So you should have a tall white paper. You were asked to have a Sharpie, and then you're going to want to have a pencil. To do this, we're going to use our hand and we're going to break it up into sections. So for anything that we do tracing, we want to make sure we're using our pencil. We don't want to have Sharpie lines all over us. So I am going to start with my hand on the paper, and it's going from my elbow all the way up. I'm filling as much of the paper as I can. I don't want to come off of the paper. My fingers would be spread too far apart this way. I'm going to make sure everything is fitting in the paper. When I trace, I want my pencil to be straight up and down. If I angle it, I end up with a super skinny toothpick sized hand. We'll have our wrists being this thin if we angle it. If we angle it out like this as we trace, then our hand and our arm becomes way too big. So straight up and down. And I'm just gonna run gently along the side and trace. All around my fingers. Bring that pinky in before I go. Again, straight up and down and come all the way down to the end. So now I should have my hand filling and my arm filling all of that space of the paper. From there, I can begin to work with my Sharpie. So I'm gonna come around and I'm gonna trace all of those lines. Again, if I was doing this with my Sharpie, as I traced the first time, I would have Sharpie all over my arm and my fingers, and I don't want to do that. So I trace first with pencil, and then I come back over my lines with my Sharpie. All right, now I'm going to divide my hand into sections. So I'm going to work with wavy lines, and I'm going to use 4 wavy lines going from the left to the right. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to do 2 wavy lines going from the top to the bottom. 1, and 2. Okay. Now I have broken my hand up into shapes. I have all of these natural and organic shapes developing because of the intersections and the way my lines are crossing. In each and every section, I'm going to start to fill with a new and different Zentangle pattern. Now, Zentangling should be calming and relaxing. It's repetitions of shapes, lines, things that you find relaxing as you fill in each and every section. So I can pick any section to begin and start filling it. I can go very simple like I am here, just with circles. And as I fill this, it starts to look bumpy. It starts to create a texture. I can go more detailed, and I can do things like spirals and have them connecting. Filling in all of my sections. And in your resource tab in your Bitmoji classroom, you have different pages with different Zentangle patterns for you. You can also use Google and search Zentangle patterns and work with any patterns that you choose. We'll come back to this when I'm finished. All right, now I would say it'll take you about 2 weeks to complete your hand with the Sharpie. And again, very beginning, you wanted to trace this with pencil. Then you can just jump right into the Sharpie. If you do everything in pencil and then trace back over it, it will double your time. So I draw directly with the Sharpie in here. So here is my finished Zentangle done just as black and white and with Sharpie. If you like it this way and you want to showcase it in this way, you can upload this to Artsonia as a black and white image before we go into our painting. And then once that's done, you're going to come on to step 2 of the project, which is working with our watercolor paints. So we're going to do a wet on wet technique. So the first thing you're going to want to do is cover this with water, and you're going to work with your watercolor tray. And the other item you're going to need is a piece of saran wrap. Okay, when you're working with your saran wrap and you're tearing a piece off, you want to make sure it is at least as tall as your picture. And this stuff sticks. I'm going to put it off to the side until I'm ready for it. Okay, so wet on wet. Again, first thing we want to do is start getting this paper wet. And that just means adding water all over. Because we worked with Sharpie, the water is not going to do anything to the Sharpie. It is a permanent marker. So again, getting this covered in water for a wet on wet technique. Also make sure you have newspaper or something underneath your paper so you are not damaging the table that you are working at. All right, everything here is wet. I'm going to get my paints ready to go by adding droplets into each bubble. I'm going to work with red, orange, yellow, blue, green, and purple. I do not need to get brown ready or black paint ready for this. I also, on this project, want to be careful with my colors. I know that if I mix purple and yellow together, I'm going to get brown. I know if I mix blue and orange together, I'm going to get brown. And I know that red and green will make brown. So I want to try and keep those colors away from each other. Remember, those are the complementary colors. Red and green, blue and orange, and purple and yellow. All right, my colors are activating. I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna start getting wet blobs of paint. I'm gonna drop them on. I can add more water to it. And I'm literally just dropping blobs of that paint on the paper. Because it's already wet, you can see that these colors are starting to run and mix, which is okay. I don't have the whole paper covered. Okay, then our saran wrap. I want to open this up. I want to get my saran wrap over, and I'm going to start to move that wet paint around using my saran wrap. So I am just kind of rubbing with the saran wrap, and the colors start to move and blend a little bit and ooze around. And I can see most of my areas. If I feel like there's not a lot of color, I can kind of bring and push it to the side to make sure I get it all the way to the edges. It's kind of fun to mush this stuff with the saran wrap. And then I can peel off my saran wrap. I've got some cool color blending going on. I'm not sure why the purple pigment is so dark in watercolors. If I want to lighten it, I can use this trick with a paper towel, and I can kind of dab some of that color up. Looks really wet in here. And that will help to lighten some of those areas up so that I can see my lines. This area is really dark. I can also add a little bit of water. And then, again, use my paper towel. And it will help to lighten it. Once it's dry, upload it to Artsonia under our hand Zentangle project.